Oh my gosh, we are actually live for the first time on Pax8 YouTube. Dom and myself, and I don't know that I could be more excited. I'd ask you to please subscribe and like for us because I have to do that now that we're live on YouTube. It's just part of the language, right? But Dom, can you tell everybody what kind of show we have ready for us today?
We have an amazing show lined up. We've got some really interesting news around some really interesting attacks that have come out and are really impacting a critical sector of our society, right? So that's a big one for me. Sort of hits close to home because I have kids in school. We have some interesting hot takes that you all submitted on LinkedIn, so thank you so much for that. And we have some amazing guests from Pax8 here internally that we'll introduce later. They're going to talk to us about security and compliance. So with that, let's roll into the news.
Let's do it. So our first segment is going to be talking about CISA. A CISA exec, Eric Goldstein, and director of cybersecurity at CISA, assistant, said this: a tiny fraction of ransomware infections are reported to the government. And the problem is getting worse because we don't even know what the actual number is, right? If we look at this summation of what's being lost and all of these things, they're saying, hey, we don't even know how bad this is. We talk about this being a 6 trillion or a 9 trillion or a 3. We genuinely do not know. There are so many non-name brand, if you will, ransomware groups that operate on different non-Conti or are evil, or right. And so you have tons and tons of this, and they're essentially saying, listen, we don't have enough data. And this goes right after, CIRCIA as a discussion, right? And we're starting to drive forward these concepts that, hey, we do have a cyber incident reporting bill that was passed that says if you're having a ransomware event, that it has to be reported within the next 72 hours and any ransomware payments within 24, right? And they're still working on the outcome of that, but just trying to keep this on your radar. And in there, they specifically say in the last 2 weeks, towns in New Jersey and Louisiana have been hit with ransomware attacks, and gangs have listed several other local municipalities on their, publicly shamed and not yet publicly acknowledged lists. And so you start seeing this kind of continued understanding that the federal government, the Five Eyes communities, governments in general, not just the United States, also including, Australia and Canada and New Zealand and the UK, you're starting to see this understanding of, we've got to at least get the data first so we can figure out how bad this is and how we're going to mount a response, let alone the TTPs. And since they did kind of tie in this New Jersey event, Dom, do you mind kind of telling us a little bit about that event and what it also means as well?
Yeah, this is a big one. So the story is really headline: New Jersey school district cancels their final exams because of ransomware. I mean,
Some
imagine
kids
being a
were super
senior.
excited.
Oh, I'm sure. I'll bet some of them were pumped. And they're trying to figure out what to do about graduation, right? Because
Yeah.
imagine being a senior, you're getting ready for your finals. It's like, oh, we're not going to do those. And we don't know what's going to happen with graduation, right? Like, what do you do? Do you go to the state and ask for an exemption, or what?
Sure.
So the impact of this is substantial, right? Because we're talking about a huge education system just stopping in its tracks because of a ransomware attack. And that's really why, in my opinion at least, that's why we're seeing these attacks against school districts. And the article goes on to
Yeah.
say that attacks against the educational system are up, and they're continuing to go up. And that's a real problem, right? But they attack it because there's a lot of incentive to get the data back and to restore the environment, because in this case, final exams can't be administered. So it came at a terrible time. I suppose not that there's a good time, but it kind of goes to show too, we see a lot of state and local type attacks, and it's a lot because of cyber immaturity in these smaller governments, right? They don't have the
Yeah.
budget to really employ, red teams or sophisticated blue teams that are going to take care of this. So I think as we in the channel mature as cyber practitioners, these potential customers can mature and start to leverage more sophisticated capabilities in the channel, is really what I hope comes out of this. And obviously less impact to student learning and educational experiences across the country. And I'm sure this is sort of echoed internationally, and it's just not in this article.
Well, and as you dig into it, Somerset County was also impacted. And for the
Mm-hmm.
longest time during that, they actually took and got Gmail accounts like road and water Somerset
Yeah.
County at gmail.com and
Yep.
trash and sewage at gmail.com
Yep.
because they
Yep.
were completely destroyed. Their entire systems were
Right.
completely locked out. And so you talk about this as we're looking at CISA coming out and saying, hey, we have a cyber reporting incident act. We have this. How many of you that are listening today have a good enough incident reporting capability and incident response capability that you could even take and meet that mandate? And I think that's the call to action between now and the next 18 months. But let's take this to the next news story that is now a extremely well seasoned, been under HIPAA for about 4.89 billion years. I think that's a specific stat, right? Like, and Kaiser Permanente exposes nearly 70,000 medical records in data breach. And as you go on and read this, you're thinking of now a hospital that is well funded, that has been well regulated for a very long time, that falls under a lot of different programs where they're actually using donor funds for outside research programs that come with their own specific requirements. And you have all this set up, and yet they still have the same boat. And as you read through this article, the piece I kind of want to point out is that in the article, they say the biggest anger is that the way they reported it was, we genuinely don't know whether or not records were touched, right? Which means A, they didn't have some methodology of tagging PII, PHI, and things that are important inside the email system that was compromised. B, the email system may have reached into other things that had more reach than that, and patient records, the identity layer, whatever it may be. But the point was, and the public outcry on this was, how do you not have a defer capability? And for anybody watching, I try to like define, our letter acronyms, but digital forensics and incident response, whereas digital forensics is trying to say, how do we figure out what happened? Do we have the breadcrumbs? Do we have the log files? Do we have them time synced? Do we have the teams to respond? Do we have enough collected? Do we have everything in scope? So that you can say, here's what happened. We know what happened. We can say that with a relative degree of belief, right? And then incident response is the taking of that practice and applying it from a containment perspective, from a recovery perspective, from a moving forward perspective. And I kind of just wanted to touch on all that because those are the signs of a healthy cybersecurity and compliance program. Having the plans ready, understanding what scope of services, understanding where your data flows, understanding. But for someone like this to step out and say, we don't know. Like we just,
I think with this one too, it could
Yeah.
really be operational maturity, right? Hypothetically, in a health system, your PHI lives in the EHR, the electronic health record system,
and
right?
other modalities, right? Yeah, but yes.
Right. And if so, was it in some unmanaged space, and that's why they're unsure? I think is the real question, because a lot of organizations lack the ability, especially in healthcare, to tag that data outside of the EHR. You export a patient chart or what have you, and all of a sudden it's now completely unmanaged data, right? So
well, I just got one on my disc. I had an MRI today of my forearm, and I got a disc, and that ISO got created, right? Like in that stage, it's probably not well tagged, is my supposition, right? To that point, but
and who knows where it lives now, right? So that's I think what we're up against too is, as you're working with your customers in cybersecurity, you have to address their operational maturity, right? You can build all the castles in the world. If I store it in the front yard, it doesn't do you any good, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something we see a lot of in our practice is just data everywhere. So it's impossible to manage it.
When you talk about maturity, right? And what comes to mind in that is actually just living the policy. Right. If you come up with these controls and policies and frameworks of how you're going to deal with protecting the keys of the kingdom or the jewels in the crown, if you will, and we'll talk about crowns here in a minute. But if you come up with those things, if you're not living these documents, if your policies that don't guide your processes and your processes aren't followed and you can't prove it and you can't gather that data and you can't do those things, how can you ever assess efficacy? How could you, after an event, say we must change this because if we don't change this, we're going to keep failing? Right? When you've not assessed whether the controls are actually followed. This came up on an article that I responded to the other day from Wes Spencer, and he said, Matt, all these vendors sell these products, and yet we find that efficacy numbers are in the 30 or 40% of what people believe they are. Right? I understand statistics are made up on the spot, quite often. but the question was like, why? And my argument was the parameters and conditions of use are assumed to be the same everywhere. And it's not always the case. You don't always have situations where things are in a perfect vacuum and they're set up exactly right and the processes are followed. And that brings me to, I wanted to introduce kind of this next segment and why I feel so special that this is the first live one. And I get to interview some people because for me to come to a place like Pax8, I had to believe that the security operations and things we did wouldn't make me look like a total hypocrite. Right. And as you walk through the space and you go out and proselytize the things we need to be doing as MSPs, it's really nice to look backwards and see that they're being done. So it took some doing, but I literally got the queens of cybersecurity and compliance. That's a plurality to that, Queens. They're each respectively over their own vertical. I just want to make sure I was clear in that statement. But we have with us, and I'd love for you to bring them on screen, Rob. We've got Robin Harris. And Toryjane. Toryjane Dillman is our manager of security operations. She quite literally owns the tactical, operational, and procedural world that we live in from a cybersecurity perspective. And her partner in crime, fellow queen, fellow throne enthusiast, Robin Harris, our compliance manager at Pax8 is with us. And thank you, ladies, for being here. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So the premise of why I wanted to bring you here is that we are a company, for people that don't know, that have grown from a few hundred employees to over 1,000. Our geography has expanded borders into almost every continent in this globe that we know. And so we're starting to see this world. And you two really are the force behind our march, if you will, to be a more secure enterprise, to be more and more compliant with increasing standards. You've taken us through the ISO 27001 journey with zero findings. And it's not because it was scope whipped. I've read it. It was because it was designed well, right? And so Dom knows my pet peeve.
I've literally never seen that, by the way. Never seen it come out with zero nonconformities.
I haven't either. Yeah, I haven't either. And so then secondarily through our SOC 2 Type 1 over the last quarter, and really by being prepared well through the first piece. And now on to SOC 2 Type 2, CSA star mixed in for free just because we didn't have enough letters in the middle. But tell me about that experience, right? You know, Toryjane, you kind of led this, and Robin was helping us with the external compliance at that time. But tell me about that journey. Just give me the short narrative of how that went for you.
Well, it really was all hands on deck across the company, certainly from our team. It was a lot of tried and true things that I think, and Robin will speak to this in a minute, that she's seen throughout her career, and things that I've seen throughout my career, and what works and what doesn't, and really going around and with cooperation of all the dynamite people at Pax8, getting things done that changed the way that people were accustomed to working in their departments. So it was disruptive, and we got a lot of flexibility. We got a lot of cooperation. I don't think we could have done it without all the good people at the company, Pax8.
Yeah. Executive buy-in is so critical, right? Like, so Robin, tell me what your experience was, because you used to be an external. And now you get to carry our banner the same way we all do as internal Pax8, employees. So talk about that journey for me.
I think it's, I think we planned the journey. I want to say we did it well, starting with ISO 27001 and then going to the SOC 2 and Type 1 and then Type 2. So I think with each level, we were able to up our game. And so it wasn't, if we had started with a more intense program, it would have been a heavier lift for people. So I think we got it right. And I think people came to the table and they didn't know what they didn't know, but they were willing to learn. And that was really, really important. People said, "Hey, I'm confused. This doesn't make any sense. Can you make this control sound like English, please?"
Right.
So we had those kind of dialogues with people, and I know that as we go forward, that audit speak and that control language, all that's going to become like people are going to become so fluent in it. But that's a process. That's a process, and we are dead in the middle of it.
Well, I wanted to ask Dom a question here, but I want to say something about that. That fluency, I think, is one of the best definitions of making something endemic in your organization that is literally living and breathing, that is actually part of it. And when you talk about compliance speak, it's because you're speaking about compliance. So it's fantastic, right? Like we're having some of these understanding and rote memory. Dom, one of the questions I want to ask is, as we go through our SOC 2, there's a concept for everybody. I'm going to give another term, POAM, which a POAM stands for Plan of Action and Milestones, right? And it's this understanding that everything isn't perfect. And as we move forward in our journey, we iterate by fixing the things in the POAM and growing forward and changing. Tell me about your experience in this process as a recipient of these two ladies' efforts, if you will, at the stakeholder level.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the queens of compliance are great. right? There's definitely organizations that have heavy-handed compliance folks, and they're a real pain to deal with. And Robin and Toryjane have always approached us, hey, here's where we're at, here's where we want to get, here's what you need to do, how can we support, right? And that's really key. That's where you get that buy-in, is understanding that not every department or team is where they need to be. So as we dug into this on my team, we were finding, some things that probably, frankly, should have been fixed before. But being able to bring those to light, bring those back to Robin and Toryjane and team and say, all right, here's where we're at, and here's the problem, and here's the proposed fix. We were able to put all that into a poem, right? So now I can have conversations with stakeholders and vendors and say, hey, here's what we're going to change by this date to meet the organizational needs. And I think the fun part about it is, and if you're in an organization that's doing this, you're going to think you have it, and then you're going to find a whole nother thing or tool or space that someone's using, and you get to do it all over again, right? And that's a lot of what compliance is it's a great opportunity to find everything happening in your organization and get it under control. We were talking a lot about sort of data discipline before. Even if you're not going to finish, and this is something Brad said on a class, and it really hit me, is even if you're not going to finish, say, a SOC 2, going through the motions and really applying yourself gets you so far ahead of the game. So I really feel that. But really, I think the core of it is our team of Toryjane and Robin and the rest of the SecOps team. They're very collaborative, right? They're not coming in and swinging hammers. They're coming in and having conversations. And any compliance team needs to do that to get the buy-in and to get the cooperation and to get the work done.
And you talk about the. Go ahead, Toryjane.
Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to just summarize it. It sounds like, Dom, in summary, you're saying compliance is fun. That's what I heard.
It can be, yeah. You guys make it more fun than I've ever had. I'll give you
I may now question your judgment in the overall statements made beforehand in the statement. But I will say, right, Dom, you talked about the game, and since this show is called The Game, I want to pontificate for a second in that this game is changing, right? In the sense that I have a theory where any product will only ever rise to a certain degree above or be a certain degree below its constituents' consuming maturity level. And what I mean by that is, if you make a really cool car that's way better than anything anybody's ever wanted or ever needed, you've seen that Simpsons episode, right? Like he built the car and then the company went under and out of business.
Yeah.
That's capitalism, right? So when you start thinking about that in compliance, we're in this phase where I think the consuming entity's maturity level is raising rapidly. Right? The MSPs, some of the vendors, the consuming entity, the regulators, the investors, they're all raising rapidly. And so you find the market here and you have this gap, and that gap is in that same thing of nature abhors a vacuum. And I say a lot of words because I get paid by the word, Toryjane, so I'll sum this up now to the question. But, one great example is we have MSPs starting to ask for a SOC 2, to see it, to hold it, to start to ask for internal operational processes. And while the internal heart of me says, I want to give that away, it's great, let's show off, the OPSEC side of me says, I have some things to protect. I have fiduciary interests to protect. I have things. So are you seeing that rising maturity level, right, Toryjane, drive these questions and drive the maturity of the questions being asked? And then I want you to postulate, what if you were in a company that didn't have this already handled, that wasn't already down this path, that wasn't going to have a SOC 3 within 7 months to hand out? How does that feel as a security professional in those two kind of just expositions? And so kind of start, are they maturing? And second, what would it be like if you weren't matured?
Well, that is such a great question, because I have noticed over time, over the 2 years I've been here, we've always gotten questions from partners, whether it's a list of questions, just a couple of questions or whatever. And as Pax8 has really become established in the marketplace, those partners are kind of upping their game, which in turn I think is driving our need to be mature, right? So we're not just getting a onesie twosie, hey, what's going on there? We're getting full on, pages and pages of questions, and being able to drop that, we're ISO 27001 certified. That's a huge step, I think, towards demonstrating our maturity, gaining partner confidence, and ultimately helping us close more business. So SOC 2 is just another iteration of that. It's a lot more complex and onerous. And then, once we get past SOC 2 Type 2, we're looking at CMMC. So we're
Yep.
constantly upping our game in response to the market because that's where Pax8 is headed, and we really need to have these things in place on our way to IPO.
Yeah, 100%. What's funny is I've now just heard you say that security and compliance is fun and that it's a business enabler and makes money. You're describing a sales kickoff. You're not describing security and compliance. I think we're confused. This is high energy and winning and
Right?
no, I love it. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Dom, what are your questions as we get this amazing opportunity to, speak to the people that kind of run our entire collective security and compliance world? Do you have any questions for them?
Yeah, I think there's a couple interesting ones. So obviously, as a compliant org, we live in a world where we do security awareness training and we do phishing simulations. And I think the folks I work with most often are technical or have been around long enough to understand the need for that. But how often, I would say, without making Pax8 look too silly, but how often do we think we're dealing with pushback on, oh, this phishing test was out of bounds, or I hate this security training? Because I think when I was in the market, that was a lot of what we had to live with was, why do I have to do this, right?
Yeah. Wow. That's a great question. And I'm just going to jump in really quick, and then Robin, you can dovetail off my comments. But early on, a couple of years ago, we got a lot of pushback on both of those categories, right? So security awareness and phishing. Folks would complain about the content of the type of phishing campaigns that we launched.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I've not heard anything like that. People are getting it. They understand that this is for real, and it's usually an opportunity to learn. But on the other side of the spectrum, the security awareness training, that might be why Robin's giggling, because that has become kind of an interesting and just within our team, kind of a source of some humor, maybe I'll say.
Sure.
Robin, you want to talk about that?
If you pull up my name on a statistic, I'm not going to be your friend, Robin. I just want to make
First of all, I want to say that the phishing campaigns are starting to be so effective. People now have link phobia. It's like their email.
Good. That's what we need.
Is this real? Can I click this? So it's really putting it into people's mind that if something does not look right, you want to ask. And you want to consider that it might not be legitimate. So I'm really proud when I see people asking that question.
It's incredible because that's the goal, right?
Security awareness training is concerned.
That's so good.
I think we have to still do a better job of letting every employee know that their part in this is really, really, really important. And we need to create a security conscious culture that this is just who we are. Security is not an afterthought. It's built into every aspect of our business because there are so many places where things can go wrong that we need all hands on deck. And that's the one place where everybody can kind of like up their game and become aware of what their responsibility is.
Yeah.
And not only that, and I'm looking forward to the day where we have some people, no matter how much we try to escalate or whatever about the security awareness training, they're just not going to do it in time. So I'm looking forward to the day when the auditors start sampling, auditors can find all your outliers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking forward to the day when I have to go back to somebody's manager and say, okay, you need to provide the management response about this, because then that will make it more real, because right now it's more of an internal conversation.
Right.
But
slowly searches.
Even large companies have problems with that because it's every employee plays a part.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not low key slowly searching. Yeah, go ahead, Dom.
How annoying is it when Matt and I are both in the office, constantly triggering alerts because we're doing threat research? Give me a scale of 1 to 10.
I am never going to confirm nor deny that. Go ahead, Toryjane. Sorry.
You know who you are. I will come up and tap you on the shoulder, and not just you two guys, right? We've got other folks, and they're legitimate, legitimate practices. We do have security as a component of our
I love it.
business. So, right. But the good news there is that we see those things, and we're alerted to them. We're able to react to them. And
really just giving you a fire drill, making sure.
Yeah. We just want to make sure that the muscles are flexing. So, all right. So we need to get to Rob. I can see Rob losing his mind over in the studio. And he just always itches.
What
for
are
this
you
5
talking
seconds.
about? I'm not losing my mind.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
literally
you're good. You're
tracking
good. He was
things.
doing the thing. So, Rob, can you ask us? We've got questions from the audience. Do you mind doing our hot takes? Toryjane and Robin, you guys are welcome to participate if you want to jump in and take over for one of the answers. But we have questions from the audience that Dom and I like to answer in a hot take type variety. So if you just see it and you want to run, just jump. So, Rob, let's get her going.
All right, let's start with question 1 here. With a shortage of cybersecurity professionals, how could technical colleges train security professionals in a short time frame? Rodney B wants to know.
It's a tough one.
I'm sorry. I said Rodney. I meant Roddy. I'm going to correct
Roddy.
myself.
He's gonna stab me.
Sorry,
okay.
Roddy. I'm so sorry, Roddy.
It happens.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Toryjane.
It's so what I was going to say is it's been a minute since I've been in school, but there's usually quite a bit of kind of fluff to fill the criteria, make somebody have to be paying an institution for 4 years or whatever. I think that having real world examples, having a lab, hardware, software, the applications, and then telling people go break this stuff. It's not a fine line that you have to skate, because when you get in the real world, that's where the creativity comes into play, and that's where the real learning happens. So I think they kind of need to maybe loosen the confines a little bit of what's being taught.
I'll go second.
I would love it.
I get
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I'll go second on this because I get long-winded sometimes. So I'm going to say the best answer I have for this. Ditto.
Yeah.
All right, your turn. Go for it. No,
I
100%
totally
agree with you.
I would also add, though, that if you're going to build a focused cybersecurity program, don't make me take theoretical physics or whatever other weird prerequisites you throw in there, but also smoke check that talent, right? Because a lot of people, I feel like, come out of training or school and they get into a role and then they experience their first major incident and it stresses them out of the role, right? Out of the industry entirely. So they really need to feel what it's like to be in the middle of a loss, because that's part of the job. And a lot of people come into it thinking they're going to be these super defenders. You are, but you're going to lose, right? From time
Defenders
to time,
have bullets sometimes.
Exactly. So making sure that they've sort of experienced the stresses that come with, I found IOCs in this, and holy crap, it snowballs into something that requires public notification or whatever. You should have felt that before you really get into, at least in the mid to senior level portion of your career in this space, because it's going to be part of the job.
Agreed. Internships would be great. Rob, let's go ahead and jump to the next question, and we'll let Robin take this one first, and then I'll jump
Absolutely.
in.
Yeah, and I do want to make a note here that I am exceptionally proud of you, Matt. That was the most concise I've seen you answer a question. I'm not going to lie.
Takes a village.
And it has been taking a village here, so we're working little by little, but I'm very proud of you. I just want to say that I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, baby. I knew I'd draw a tear today.
We're going to load up the next one here. Maybe. Hold on.
It's okay. We got you.
Doing it live.
We're doing it live. There's a thing. I'm pressing a lot of buttons, people here, but we're going to start into the next one. Bobby G wants to know, what will be the next tool weaponized against MSPs and these clients?
Ooh, that's not my space.
Robin's like, okay. I can't know.
I meant to set you up like that, but I'll tackle this one, right? You start seeing a lot of automation and robotic process automation things that are going to be kind of that API middleware, the things that connect in the other things. Think of them as your lion guards, as your, and I'm not specifically calling them out from a negative. I just mean you're starting to put a lot of control plane in your data plane space, right? You're starting to have a lot of that. So I think the next big things will be cloud providership type things that aren't adequately secured or adequately SSO'd or brought into some capability of an identity provider that allows you to monitor that. You combine that with this kind of challenge of lack of logging capabilities from third-party cloud providers that don't allow you to have some of that parsable data. It kind of makes this perfect storm. So short answer back to the ditto type quality is, I think the API layer becomes the biggest attack surface on MSPs over the next few years.
100%. Click here for this convenient feature, and I'm in. But honestly, I'll add also the same tool they used yesterday, because the improvement hasn't happened in that space, right? Yeah. So the same RMMs, no particular one, but the same RMMs and the same remote control tools are still there, and I still see it a lot in the field. They have not been any further matured than from when the last wave of attacks hit, right? So you have to be paying attention to that. So focus on the next. I love it. Focus on enterprise apps and that attack vector. But please do not forget about these baseline tools that are probably still in your environments.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
All right, I'll lead us right into the next question then. And let's see if it works this time. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. Wow! Look at that.
There it is.
Okay, so this is a long one, guys. So sit back, and hopefully we can hear from Robin on this, because we're hoping that it's her space on this question. Charles S. says, as a whole, does cybersecurity industry just suck at doing its job? With funding and corporate buy-in, all the time, with funding and corporate buy-in at an all-time high, why does it seem like we are constantly falling short and failing to protect the crown jewels? Robin, you got anything to say on that?
Well, I will say this, that it's not always about throwing money at a solution and resources. So security, compliance, it adds a layer of complexity into your environment that you need to resource. It's almost like you need to add 20% across to be able to accommodate all the work that comes with making your environment secure, with internal testing, with making sure people are upgrading their skills, and it's funny because sometimes companies put it into their budget. It looks like it's in their budget. I'm not talking about Pax8. I'm just talking about from experience.
Throwing stones here, Robin Harris. Throwing stones.
It's a line in the budget that somehow never makes it to where it was supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
You have to remember,
I'll ask for money to do some of the things we're supposed to be budgeted to do. It's like all of a sudden the money it got used up in other things that are also important, but it didn't get to where it needed to go. So.
Well, remember too, all-time high just means higher than it was before, right? So remember, like, it could have been a 0, right? So if we say all-time high, we might not be saying much.
Yeah. I would like to.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Wrap us up. No. Close us out, Toryjane.
All I wanted to say was that the other side of that equation is also become infinitely better at what they're doing. The cyber threatscape, the bad guys and gals and people are so much more organized. And so if it gives the appearance that we're kind of losing the battle or sucking, I think was the word, I would argue that we're doing pretty darn good, all things considered, when you look at the whole picture.
Well, I'll close it out. I'm already out of time. I'm getting the hook. I'm glad I'm far enough away that there's a delay in the hook. But the conversation goes into that I think that we focus so much on protect. If you read every single framework out there, they start with identify the stuff you have and what it's worth. Protect it. Well, guess what? That's 2/5. The other 3/5 are detect. Figure out that you've been compromised, which means it's going to happen. Respond, take action, contain it, limit its damage, remove how much it can impact, drop the amount and protect your constituency, and then recover. Why is there 3 others? Well, every single vendor ever tells you is if you do this, you'll never have one of these events. It's not true.
Right.
So I think part of this is a focus problem, back to your question of, are we losing? Yes, but that's the way this works. It's how fast we catch it, how well we notify, how much data we know about what happened, how well we know ourselves. ultimately. So I would take defense in the sense that this is a bit of a paradigm challenge that we're trying to change here. So that's pretty much it for me. I know, I wanted to thank the two of you for being here. Like, this is amazing. Yeah. It was great to have you two here, Toryjane and Robin. Thank you. Thank you for watching on YouTube. I got to do my cleanup stuff and make sure you click down here on the subscribe and like and such. Yeah, I'm turning into a real millennial. Yeah, totally. Dom, you want to close us out and then we'll roll out.
Yeah, again, thank you, Queens of Compliance, for joining us. It's massively cool to give people an insight into Pax8 cyber ops. Thank you for joining us on the show. What Matt said, click the buttons down there, do the things. And we are going to be here every Friday at about 2 p.m. Mountain Time. So join us for the game every week, and we'll see you next time.